Stugotz here. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I love a good gummy. Whether I'm on the golf course or winding down after a long day of carrying the show on my back, all I need is one good gummy to help me totally relax. And now, thanks to my good friends at CBDMD, getting Delta 9 THC gummies shipped directly to your door is not only possible, it's easy and affordable. How about that? Every CBDMD Delta 9 gummy is packed with 10 milligrams of THC per gummy, and let me tell you, buddy, they work. CBDMD also has Delta 9 microdose capsules that feature 1 milligram of THC, so it's easy to enjoy them whenever, wherever. And listen, I know it's easy to get confused with all the different Deltas out there, but Delta 9 THC is the same good old-fashioned THC we've all known and loved for years. To learn more about Delta 9 and everything else CBDMD has to offer, just head to cbdmd.com/Dan. Once again, that's cbdmd.com/Dan for information, education, and the best damn gummies you've ever had. Must be 21 years or older to purchase Delta 9.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz podcast.
We're presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code Dan for a special offer when you sign up. That's code Dan, only at DraftKings Sportsbook.
We make a number of mistakes around here every day, and so one of the things that we got wrong the other day is that we did not cover baseball and its trading deadline very well, although we did give you some Juan Soto analysis as Bruce Springsteen singing. We did bring you that, but now David Samson is back from Africa. The trade deadline was busy. I think Billy's broken. I'm not sure because the Marlins didn't do anything. But let's start overall, David, with Soto and just what the Padres are doing and what the Brewers are doing. I was really surprised that they traded Hader. So just tell me your overall thoughts as a busy time in baseball came and went.
When the new collective bargaining agreement was signed and expanded playoffs happened, which means that there is a third wild card team, and they finished with the one game and done. Owners hated that. In previous years, the wild card games were one game and you could win or lose, and then you're done. You could win 100 games, play a wild card game, and lose, and owners did not like that. The new CBA allows for a 2 out of 3 series now, all in one park. It starts this year. And what the commissioner thought is that teams would change their behavior because of expanded playoffs, that more teams would be in the race. They'd feel they were in the race, and they would govern and act accordingly. Well, after one trade deadline, we've learned that actually nothing's changed. The sellers were the sellers, the buyers were the buyers, and the smartest teams were the ones who were not the delusional teams. I want to talk about the Brewers to start with because they were the far more interesting team. David Stearns is one of the top 3 most respected and best president of baseball operations in all of baseball. Christian Yelich on the Brewers is one of the best players in baseball, at least used to be, but one of the least understanding of what goes on in a front office. When the Marlins made the moves that we made when we had Yelich, he'd be very upset, and I'd have to talk to him, and he would be he'd misbehave for a period of days or weeks, and I'd have to explain to him why we're doing certain things that may not work, but here's what we're trying to do. That same conversation had to happen with Yelich when the Brewers traded Josh Hader. Josh Hader is their closer. Josh Hader was the person on the first place team who was supposed to get them to the World Series, and David Stearns traded him to the Padres. Why? Because they've got another closer, Devin Williams, who did give up a home run last night to the Pirates, but ignore that. They've got a closer ready to go. They got other players who are going to help them keep their window of winning open longer. That's what you want as a front office. If you are a Marlins fan, if you are a Brewers fan or an Orioles fan, you want the window of opportunity to be open for as long as possible. And the Brewers made an unpopular move because they weren't going to listen to the media. They weren't going to listen to their players. They weren't going to listen to their fans. They were going to listen to their baseball executives. And that's something I never did.
What does it look like when Christian Yelich is misbehaving, like you said?
Doesn't go to community appearances, doesn't sign things that he promised to sign, doesn't do anything other than what's contractually obligated for him to do, and does it when he's pouting. He and I have spoken about this since. when he was influenced so badly by a former player named Jeff Baker when he was younger and much less mature. He's totally changed. He is now the leader in the Milwaukee clubhouse. He is a leader in the Milwaukee community. But when players are young, whether you're Yelly or AJ Burnett or anybody, it's when you just become a surly teenager. And players just don't understand what it is to run a team, and you try to explain it to them, but they just don't get it. But the Brewers needed to have a team meeting, and they did after the Hader trade, and they were told why that trade was made, and it was the single best trade of the deadline was the Brewers trading Josh Hader.
That said, though, David, I don't understand how anyone ever hits Hader, and it cannot be disputed whether he gave up a home run or not last night, that it's going to be almost impossible to be as good in that position as they were with Hader.
Well, Devin Williams is the one who gave up the home run to the Pirates, and he is as good as Hader. And Hader, you have to look at what the player is making, and you have to look at the fact that bullpen pieces are fungible. You do not want to allocate 10% of your payroll to a closer. It does not make sense. Trust me. Tried it. It doesn't make sense. You have a much better chance of having a different closer each and every year, especially when you don't have a payroll that's $200 or $250 million. Devin Williams for the Brewers is going to be just as good as Josh Hader.
No, he's not. That's where. No, come on.
He is. He is, Dan.
David, Hader.
I don't know what to say to you.
Hader
I
is
appreciate your love of baseball.
Jessica was a little slow there because she's groggy and it's early in the morning. But please,
Samson said don't, but I did it anyway. Misbehaving.
Thank you.
I did not understand that at all.
She sang it in my ear, and I was delighted, and I wanted to hear it on air. So I appreciate that you did that. Running around the house with a pickle in my mouth.
You mentioned John Baker. You mentioned John Baker earlier. Who was the worst guy in the clubhouse who influenced young players negatively?
So now I'm beginning to worry, Roy. John Baker, not the catcher, who's the awesome guy. Was it Jeff Baker? There was a utility guy.
The backup
Jeff
catcher.
Baker.
Wait, wasn't Jeff Baker a backup catcher?
No, that was John Baker.
Oh, man, this is fun.
I think John Baker was the backup catcher who was this really good-looking athlete.
Jeff or John. I don't even think Jeff Baker knows who he is either.
Jeff Baker was the negative influence. Jeff Baker was the shit disturber on the team who we signed to be a bat off the bench, sort of like Wes Helms, and he just was a total disaster.
The bat off the bench can't be the shit disturber. Like, just cannot
Correct.
be.
Oh, yeah,
That's why
Jeff
we released
Baker.
him.
We got him from the Rockies. I remember that guy. Oh,
But you
That's why we released him.
you didn't answer Roy's question, or is Baker the answer?
No, that is the answer. He was the biggest shit disturber. Now, listen, Tom Kohler was a disturber as well, but he did it with a good heart. Barry Bonds was a terrible disturber. The worst coaching shit disturber we ever had was Bonds, trying to work players up and trying to get them to ask for more and do more. Heath Bell was a terrible disturber. He would go into the training room and say, what kind of cheap-ass organization doesn't have a cryogenic chamber? And then we had to buy one, which was ridiculous because it didn't help his performance or anybody else's. So a disturber is someone.
Chubby.
We missed.
But
Puerto
why didn't you have
because
one,
of
though?
Bonds? Because it was a waste of money. It's silly. It's that thing you go in for 20 seconds and you freeze yourself. And I've said
Roy did it.
cryogenic.
It's not
you've
silly.
done that, Roy?
But it's not silly. It helps the body heal.
I did, but I wasn't hurting. I was paying off a bet.
It increases it helps your immunity system, and it helps blood flow to areas that need healing.
Our owner was convinced. The GM said no. I said no. The player then went to the owner. The owner said, have it installed by the end of tomorrow. Another thing about Jeffrey that people don't get. My head, the reason I'm 5'5" is my head got stepped on so often by players who went right to Jeffrey to get what they wanted because Jeffrey would never say no to players. Ironically, he would never say no to all the different gadgets and things that the players wanted because they would convince him that it was going to help them win games.
What's the best example of something someone went over your head on?
Puerto Rico.
Playing in Puerto Rico?
Yep. I thought it was important to play in Puerto Rico. I liked playing internationally. I liked playing and getting attention by playing the international games. And players do not like doing that. They want to get paid extra money to do it. They're inconvenienced to do it. And one year when Bonds was the coach, we had a Zika outbreak. I don't know if you guys remember that. It was something called Zika way before COVID. And it was this disease that if you were going to get pregnant, then you had a potential problem. We had a team meeting, which I didn't want to have. We brought in doctors, which I didn't want to do. We had a doctor who the players knew. We had a doctor who we wanted. And we addressed the team and talked about the risks of going to Puerto Rico and how they were de minimis and we should go play. And Barry Bonds stood up and said, if I were you all, I wouldn't go to Puerto Rico unless they paid you more money. I kicked him out of the clubhouse. I screamed at him, and I went to talk to him. I said, you are not permitted to address the players ever. You are now management. You are not a player. You do not hold the sway that you think you hold. But guess what? Between him and Craig Breslow, the Yelly, who was on the team at the time, who explained to all of the players from the Dominican who were having sex with various people who could possibly get pregnant, saying, you're going to have a problem and it's going to cost you extra money if your kids are sick or your wife or your girlfriend, if anyone's sick. The players voted not to go to Puerto Rico. I had to call the commissioner's office and say, we're not going to Puerto Rico. And that's the truth of what happened, of why that trip was canceled.
I have other questions about times that you have felt most quickly. I don't know if you got
Dominicans were the only people having sex?
Listen, we can talk about the mechanics of a clubhouse anytime you want, and we could rank who has more sex, when, and how. I'm happy to do any of that if you think it's either good content or appropriate.
How would you know that?
When you're in a clubhouse for 18 years, you see
Is there like
it
a
all.
daily thing where everyone comes in like, I had sex 4 times last night? You, everybody, put it on the board.
It's as close to that as I'd like to tell you, especially on the road.
Billy, you got us here. Any follow-ups?
No, I kind of like Barry Bonds more now, honestly, after some of these stories.
He would not behave like management, but I don't mind someone who doesn't behave like management.
But when you're in management, you have to behave like someone in management. Otherwise, you shouldn't be in management.
Except
that's the role you play.
He was Barry Bonds, and he was in management, and he got a giant salary because they went over your head, and Loria wanted Barry Bonds, so then he was in management.
He was actually just empowered by that. The reason why I didn't have a lot of sway with Bonds is because he knew that all he had to do was call Jeffrey and he'd get whatever he wanted. He'd get his own suite on the road. He'd get his own transportation to and from hotels instead of being on the team bus. He'd be able to do anything he wanted. He'd get money paid under the table, which we lied to Major League Baseball and to the San Francisco Giants about when they asked. Larry Baer asked me straight up, the former president of the Giants, what are you paying Barry Bonds? And I lied and told him we were paying him like $350,000. And I'm sorry, Larry.
Why'd you lie to him?
Because under Perry Hill's contract, who was another one of Jeffrey's favorites who got to do whatever he wanted, Perry Hill had to be the highest paid coach. That was the contract that Perry Hill signed with Jeffrey, not with me or Larry or Mike. Therefore, we couldn't violate that contract, so the coaching contract with Bonds had to be lower than the Perry Hill coaching contract, but Barry Bonds wouldn't come unless he were paid more than Perry Hill, so in order to pay him more than Perry Hill, we had to pay him from a different entity completely off the table.
Wait a minute. Perry Hill had the Nick Saban contract, which is crazy. 2, you violated that contract, so now you owe Perry Hill a ton of money.
Oh, bring it, Perry. I dare you. Bring it.
Why are you now threatening Perry Hill, who did nothing, and an honorable
Perry
man?
Hill did more to hurt the Marlins in his time there than just about anybody player or coach that we had.
What?
Examples?
I mean,
You may think because he has great PR, does it remind you of Jeter, someone who has great PR, but it's like the Wizard of Oz? Perry Hill has great PR as being the best infield coach of all time. Go ahead and ask players.
Luis Castillo gave him one of his gold gloves, I thought.
Because Luis Castillo was told that he can't sell the gold glove.
He was also too busy having sex.
And
As one of those Dominicans, he was too busy to concentrate on any of this stuff.
Don't make this about race.
I didn't make it about. I didn't know how many Mexicans, Dominicans, Colombians were having sex in your clubhouse. You brought it up. Nobody asked you that. You volunteered it. Moving on.
who was the second most damaging behind Perry Hill?
Sorry, but yes, it was you, Mike Berger.
Oh, Mike Berger.
I love him listening. Like, don't say me. Don't say
Mike
me.
Berger's
Don't say
right
me.
there. He's,
God damn it,
he's
Mike.
on the treadmill right now listening to the
I know.
podcast.
They're
He's
all
been
listening
listening.
because they all listen. Mike, you know, I'm sorry I flew to Pittsburgh to fire you that time, but I told Jeffrey if he didn't fire you, I was going to quit, and he chose me. But then he chose you after. Do you remember when we rehired you? And you know what you did. And I don't blame you. When you have a direct line to the owner, you use it. I get it. You use it.
I have a number of follow-up questions, but this is the first I'm hearing. Perry Hill has a pristine reputation, so when Roy says examples...
With who?
I've always thought so highly of Perry Hill, and when I talk to other people... Now, admittedly, a lot of my information on Perry Hill is coming from other reporters, and reporters really like Perry Hill. I haven't
Why do reporters like Perry Hill, if you had to guess?
Well, he's affable, kind, available, helpful, and he's just... He seems to me...
He looks like a Monopoly man.
A decent man.
What's the word that you just glossed over? Do you remember your days of being a reporter? How about the word helpful? Have you ever wondered how people get good reputations with the media? Because they leak the most stuff to the media.
Okay, so that's why you're saying he's disruptive when Roy asks you for examples?
He's disruptive because when he didn't get what he wanted, he would go right to Jeffrey. The common theme is the common theme. The most disruptive people are the people who didn't respect the chain of command and who did not care about anything other than getting everything they wanted and knew that Jeffrey was going to give it.
So you're angry because he broke the org chart, basically. You went over your head.
But is that their fault or Jeffrey's fault for allowing that to happen all the time?
Great question. It's mostly Jeffrey's fault. But I have spoken to those people who are taking advantage of Jeffrey's desire to win and of his desire to be liked by people. And I've explained why I'm the hatchet man. And I've explained to people from Felipe Alou all the way to Don Mattingly why I play the role I play. And how come 97% of the employees were willing to follow the correct chain of command, to communicate with me or with Larry or with Mike what was going on, to communicate with me when Jeffrey would call them at 2 a.m. with a trade proposal, and then they would respond, yes, let's do that trade. And then we'd get a call the next day saying, we're signing this guy or trading for this guy, or we're signing Saltalamacchia, whatever the case may be. How come 97% of the employees were respectful and communicative and 3% weren't?
We are so into this, Billy and I. Like, the rest of us are so into this right now because of the names that are popping up. Jessica has no idea what we're talking about. Mike Berger, Saltalamacchia.
It's Perry Hill.
God, that makes me so happy that you said that. He's an infield coach who was famous as being one of the best infield coaches in all of baseball.
The Nick Saban of infield coaches.
Still is he not? He's still playing, is he not? Or still coaching, rather?
I have no idea.
I believe he is.
Was there anyone else that you, besides Mike Berger, anyone else that you went to Jeffrey and like him or me? Or her or me?
So you can't do that every Donnerstick, right? You can't every day walk into your owner and your boss and say, "Hey, if you don't do what I want, I'm gonna resign." So you have to save it for when it matters. And it happened with Mike Berger, and it happened with Dan Jennings. And the response to the Dan Jennings was, not only are we not getting rid of Dan Jennings, but we're going to make him the manager. And then after that, we're going to fire him.
Perry Hill is the infield coach up in Seattle.
Of course he is.
I've got a lot of questions, and it seems like Billy and Chris do too. It doesn't seem like
I do too.
Jessica.
Who is Dan Jennings?
Wow. He is the former general manager of the Marlins, the former VP of player personnel for the Marlins. He worked for the Rays, and he now works for the Washington Nationals as a special assistant.
He was also the manager for a little bit.
And that's a good one. Jessica, that's a good story. Like that. But this one of the reasons I love this hour, there are a number of reasons I love this hour. The information is impeccable, and nobody tells you like that. Yeah, I had to lie here, and this is how we broke the rules with Barry Bonds. But when you ask that question, it's a good question to inform the national audience that doesn't care about any of these people. The Dan Jennings story is amazing. Like, that guy weaseled his way through your entire organization because he had the owner's ear, right?
He was the one who was brought in. Ironically, he was hired by Larry Beinfest, ironically. And he ended up, being very difficult with Larry, not his own fault. I love DJ, but he didn't know what to do with the power he had. I don't think you understand when you've got the boss's ear how powerful that can be. And power in the wrong hands leads to pain. And there was a lot of pain in the Marlins organization because of the misuse of power.
Can you explain to Jessica why it is? I thought it was Berger. Berger is number 2 on your list here.
Berger, not Berger.
Okay. Can you explain to me why he was number 2 and to the audience who he is?
So the connection that you'll find between all these people, it's very simple. You can look at the Jeffrey Loria tree. It's quite simple. He used to own the Oklahoma City 89ers, which is a AAA team for the Texas Rangers at that time. And now I don't know. They're not even called the Oklahoma City 89ers, and I don't actually know where they're the AAA team for these days. But in any case, he was a AAA owner. And I did not work with him. I was working in Europe or at the time, or on Wall Street, and or maybe it was law school, whatever it was, doesn't matter. It was the Texas Rangers farm team. Perry Hill was in that system. Mike Berger was one of his players. Wayne Rosenthal, the World Series winning pitching coach in 2003, who took over when we fired the pitching coach, was a player for Jeffrey on the Oklahoma City 89ers. All of the people who work for us with the Yankee connections, the Oklahoma City connections, the Texas connections, it's a very simple line to draw. And you can see that when you've got a relationship with Jeffrey, he is loyal. Marty Scott worked for Jeffrey back in Texas and then worked for him in Florida. Marty Scott, the guy who the Marlins, when Jeffrey sold, did not take care of Marty, who recently passed away, sadly. Loyalty is something Jeffrey had, which greater than anything. Believe it or not, with all the firings he did with managers, the loyalty he had to front office people was unparalleled. And people took advantage of that loyalty, and that's too bad. And Dan took advantage of it a lot, and he knows it, and we've talked about it, and we're at peace. We have a great relationship. We've done a lot of great things together, but he knows that he did things that he looks at in the rearview mirror, and he and Jeffrey don't talk now. We finally got it so he and Dan don't talk by making Dan the manager.
So what's Jimmy Hot Dog up to these days?
Who's that?
I don't know. Mike Berger was on the same team as him, I think.
Wow, that needs the loser game show
That was a good
sound.
one. No, that was a good joke.
That is not.
And where's Paul Giordano?
You got to go Frankfurter. It's a funnier word. If you're gonna go hamburger, I mean, it's so bad. Yeah.
Wait, is she making up names?
Yes. Can you play for me, please? I meant to say this when Samson, I want to get better at using this sound. When Samson said the Brewers will be as good at closer with Hader. Get that
Do you
sound.
not know Jimmy Hot Dog was a made-up name?
Bologna.
Samson, Billy's asking you a question. Did you think Jimmy Hot Dog? Did you think that Jimmy Hot Dog was like a nickname for somebody?
Yes.
That Jimmy Butler had a nickname and his name was Jimmy Hot Dog?
I thought it was either a character from Goodfellas or a player. I was not going to get Sid Thrifted. You were not going to do that to me on this show.
That's too old a reference. Nobody knows what you're doing there with the former Pirates general manager. Go ahead and tell
making up names.
Well, go ahead and tell the Sid Thrift story, but now you're going into the 80s.
It doesn't matter. The story is what informed me how to be a president of a team. When you do an interview, Sid Thrift was the general manager of a team. He went on a radio show, and the radio show host said to him, "We really like this player, John Cocktoasten. What do you think of him?" Sid Thrift said, "We love his stuff. He's got 2 very workable pitches. We're developing a curveball for him. We think he's got major league potential. We look forward to him being on our team." It was a made-up name.
Yeah, it's a great story.
And Sid Thrift was unwilling to say, "I don't know that player," because he thought it would be too embarrassing.
Wait a minute.
I am not embarrassed to say when I don't know, when I'm asked about a minor league player. I've never heard of all the minor league players in our system.
Okay.
I would just say I don't know.
David, sorry. Okay. You thought Jimmy Hot Dog was a real person. It's okay.
Yes, I did.
What was his name again? John who?
It's Sid Thrift. And what was the name, the made-up name? Do you remember the made-up name?
I just used John Cocktoasten because that's the made-up name I use for everything.
So what? Hold on. I want to ask this question.
What? For what?
When you need a
Checking into hotels.
when you need a made-up name, tell us, when do you need a made-up name, and when does Jimmy Cocktoasten? When does he make an appearance? Tell us. We want to know more about Jimmy Cocktoasten.
The name that I would check into hotels with was Jay Trotter. That was my name. Jay Trotter is the character from Let It Ride. That's the Richard Dreyfuss character. John Cocktoasten is the character from Fletch.
Oh, wow. Okay. So that's the name that you're using because
Yes.
it's just funny to you. Okay.
Correct.
This is great. We're doing Fletch and Sid Thrift talk here. We are killing it right now in 1988.
How the hell did you get off Kilimanjaro with a broken leg or whatever you had? Like, how are you here today?
Yeah, so I do have a torn hamstring. I'm going to a doctor today. I did make it to the summit. If you Google Guinness Book of World Records highest trail race, you will see my picture in the Guinness Book of World Records as having completed a marathon from the summit of Kilimanjaro. I did it. I just kept going. It took 12 hours to do the marathon. To summit the mountain took 5 days plus a 6.5-hour hike that night. The night before the marathon to get to the start line. So it was an 18-hour race altogether. And I just kept going.
Stugotz here. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I love a good gummy. Whether I'm on the golf course or winding down after a long day of carrying the show on my back, all I need is one good gummy to help me totally relax. And now, thanks to my good friends at CBDMD, getting Delta 9 THC gummies shipped directly to your door is not only possible, it's easy and affordable. How about that? Every CBDMD Delta 9 gummy is packed with 10 milligrams of THC per gummy. And let me tell you, buddy, they work. CBDMD also has Delta 9 microdose capsules that feature 1 milligram of THC, so it's easy to enjoy them whenever, wherever. And listen, I know it's easy to get confused with all the different Deltas out there, but Delta 9 THC is the same good old-fashioned THC we've all known and loved for years. To learn more about Delta 9 and everything else CBDMD has to offer, just head to cbdmd.com/Dan. Once again, that's cbdmd.com/Dan for information, education, and the best damn gummies you've ever had. Must be 21 years or older to purchase Delta 9.
Your plans? Today it's dinner with the parents at your spot.
We gotta come back here.
Now, their spot. Or you're on the edge of your seat at the game.
Come on, just one time.
And it's the one. Or maybe you're catching the next flight to...
Now boarding flight 1850.
Oh, that's you. The choice is yours. And when you're with Amex, it's not if it's going to happen, but when. American Express. Don't live life without it.
Dan Le Batard.
Did you guys see Gilbert Arenas' assessment of Zion Williamson?
Agent Zero.
Stugotz.
Did you answer my question there or no?
No.
Okay, very good.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz.
I gotta teach Samson how to vacay, man. He's always scaling mountains, saving the world. Just go to a beach, man. Put a drink in your hand. Listen to some Jimmy Buffett.
He's a crazy person. And you guys were asking the other day, I'd be curious what his answer is to do you enjoy running? Because this show came out against running. And
Well, I wasn't here. I'm pro running.
I know, it was
I'm the
stupid.
only one.
It was stupid. But But David, very few people, I mean, I shouldn't even say this because a lot of people are like David, but they're crazy. These ultra marathoners and these people who beat up their bodies. And I told David he shouldn't be going on any of that. Never mind. The dude is literally climbing Kilimanjaro when he should not have been walking around.
Quite the supportive friend you are.
I mean, it's idiotic. What he did is idiotic. Like, it's not, I don't know what kind of pain he is in now, but when you ask the question, how did you scale Kilimanjaro with a broken leg? Like, don't do that.
So Le Batard, when I crossed the finish line and I had posted a picture of me at mile 24 of the marathon, Le Batard texted me saying, "You're idiotic."
Goodbye forever,
he didn't
David.
Say congratulations. He didn't say way to go. Talk about not being supportive. And it wasn't a bit because it was off the air. There was nothing for ratings, for listeners, for clicks. That was his version of communicating to me, was calling me an idiot for trying to do something that only 21 people tried and only 14 of us were able to complete.
Those failures, what happened to them?
Yeah.
Are you mocking as you keep going? Like, are you
Oh
like,
my God,
you
no.
cowards?
You're crying. You're not mocking at all. Out of the 21 people who tried to get to the start line, only 20 people even got to the start line. And of the 20 people who got to the start line, only 11 people got to the finish line.
I don't think, okay, and forgive me for not being gentle enough. Like, it is an accomplishment, and I admire your will. I have seen very few like it. You have an amazing pain threshold and ability to push through some of these things, and I admire it. But you were injured before you did any of that. And I would think that anyone who cares about you, even knowing you, even understanding you, would be worried about what condition you would come down that mountain in.
So the only question I asked the doctors before I left is whether I could die. That was it. And they all said the same thing, that you're going to have a level of pain that you've never experienced, but there's not going to be a blood clot that'll break off. You could die climbing Kilimanjaro because people die because of altitude sickness, but because of your torn hamstring, that will not kill you. It's only a matter of whether or not you're willing to endure the pain. And if that's the only threshold, there's no way I'm not going to finish that marathon.
So you say willing to endure the pain, and it brings up some follow-ups from early in this interview because you somehow became numb. I mean, president of a baseball team is a powerful position, but you somewhere along the line became numb to the idea of Heath Bell, no, I've made a ruling, and then by the end of the day, you have to go against your ego, pride. At this point, you're a janitor. You're not the president of a team. At this point, you're not a leader. You're just doing what a meddlesome owner is demanding of you against your wishes. How do you get immune to the pain, shame, or whatever of like, okay, I've been overruled again? And what's the greatest example you have other than Heath Bell of something that you went in on with conviction and 6 minutes later it had been overturned because somebody went straight to the owner?
Well, I had agents go straight to the owner. I told Mike Ryan during COVID the Dustin McGowan story. When that's the most embarrassed I was in 18 years was the Dustin McGowan story, who was a pitcher for the Marlins. And he had an agent, and his agents were the Levinson brothers. And we called the Levinson brothers and said, we're not bringing back Dustin McGowan. And he said, what do you mean you're not bringing him back? We have an agreement. And we said, of course we don't have an agreement. We're the president and GM of the team. It was me and Mike at the time. And we said, there's no agreement. And they said, well, we have a done deal. And we've got the paperwork, and it's all signed, sealed, and delivered. And we said, well, we didn't do it, so it's not valid. What are you talking about? And they said, the Levinson brothers said, you may want to check your own house. Called up Jeffrey. Jeffrey denied it. I called up the Levinsons to say there's no deal for McGowan. 10 seconds later, Jeffrey called me to say there's a deal for McGowan. He had misled me into, he was embarrassed that he had done it behind our backs. We did not want to allocate the money to McGowan. It was only like $1 million. It was nothing. It was ridiculous, but the principle was the same. And you're asking how it feels to your ego? I never even stopped to think about it because I had a team to run. So I have other things I have to do. It was just part of my job description was dealing with not just the owner, but, the janitor. I was dealing with thousands of people, and I wasn't going to let anything stop me from doing my job and doing it as well as I could. But everyone's got constraints. If you ask the people in your studio right now, you think they all feel good about you as the boss, that they get everything they want whenever they want it?
No, of course not. Although you did make me laugh when you told one of your stories because both Roy and Chris have gone on trips they weren't supposed to go on because they came up to me and just said, hey, can I go? And I was like, yeah, why aren't you going? Like, that's how that happened. They went, like, I've probably embarrassed whatever is supposed to be our executive chain because it's happened around here.
Hey, man, we got you content. What are you talking
Remember
about?
the hot whistle thing?
I think we lost lots of money on all of those things.
Oh.
But the hot whistle thing.
Yeah.
Do you make them explain financially why they take the trips they take?
No,
I let them from a content standpoint.
The business has to figure that out. We are not good at I'm not good at the business part. We've got a business to business that out. But what I'm telling you is when they've gone around the business, they just come and ask me. And next thing I know, I got Roy on the ice in Denver, and I got Chris Cody going to the Super Bowl when everyone in the executive chain said he wasn't going.
And that's because you thought it'd be good content, right?
No, it's just because Roy and Chris wanted to go.
I mean, don't downplay that content I made, baby.
Yeah, I mean, come on now.
The Ricky video.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that, Dan, if you're in charge of content and what's good and bad, and Chris and Roy, and you believe in them, they're going to come to you and you're going to agree with them if you agree with them. That's all Jeffrey did. He didn't do it to be mean to me or to make me feel small.
But lying to you is a different thing, David. Like, so you're now going back again and again, and you just called it the most embarrassing thing in 18 years. It makes me want to do 2 top 5 lists with you today, both top 5 most embarrassing thing, because I haven't heard that as number 1 before, and also just top 5 snakes in baseball. Just snakes. Because since we're
so
going
many.
Yes, I know there's so many, but you're talking about all of these movements in the background. So I want to do those 2 lists with you, and I want to get to Soto, and I want to get to the Marlins. So we got a lot that needs to be covered here. But where's the final point on the moves made yesterday, not made by the Marlins? And again, Soto to the Padres, I did not think the Padres could be the team of Tatis, Machado, Soto, young and good for 10 years, trade for Hader. Wait a minute. What do you mean the Padres want to go at the Dodgers? What do you mean? They've been doing this for 5 years. That's a small market, isn't it? That's the only pro team they've got. It's never mattered. Like, them going for it against the Dodgers, to me, with a team for 10 years, I don't even understand how the finances of that work.
Desperation is an amazing cologne in baseball. You've got an owner who's never won. You've got a market that's never won a World Series. And you've got a complex. The Padres were always famous. It was the Padres and the Mets in the ownership room who were the 2 famous teams for having the complex. The Mets always had a complex about the Yankees. Always. And the Padres have always had a complex about the Dodgers. And the Dodgers under Frank McCourt were more of a joke, and so the Padres did not actually have to do anything active. But once the Dodgers were sold and they got all that TV money and they were bought by Guggenheim Partners and they brought in Stan Kasten and Andrew Friedman and their payroll went to the sky, the Padres have had this desire to do whatever they could to be in the same room. It's the person who wants to go into the famous person's room and they rent a tux and they rent a dress and they're surrounded by people who throw away the dress and the tux at the end of the day because they've got 20 of them and they want to belong so badly, but you can't change who you are. The Padres don't belong in the same room as the Dodgers. They will not ever be in the same revenue room as the Dodgers. They won't be able to win consistently the way the Dodgers do, which is why the Padres have signed players, then traded them, then signed them, then traded them. Does this sound familiar to anybody in the room? Chris, Roy, any of this?
I mean, to your point, they made all these moves, bring Soto in, and they went from like 8th favorite to win to 5th. It's not like they jumped up to like the 2nd favorite right now. No one, like Vegas still doesn't have them winning the World Series even with these moves.
They will not make it to the World Series. They do not have they're not as good a team. It's not like in basketball, if you trade for LeBron James, you're guaranteed to get yourself to the finals when he was in his prime. Just look at the Angels. They can't make the playoffs with Trout and Ohtani, 2 of the top 5 players. Bringing in Juan Soto is a great, what was your expression, lipstick on a corpse? Lipstick on a pig?
Breast implants on a corpse.
Breast implants on a corpse is what the
Worst
signing
possible combination of all of those things. Yes, great analogy though.
Wait a minute, no, that was Dan, not me.
Right, I am saying that to Dan.
It is
okay.
It is 20 years ago talking about Pudge Rodriguez's signing.
Who the hell is that?
Kick, save, and a beat.
What? No, but that's what it was. The joke is, I said to Samson when this is how wrong I got it. When they got Pudge Rodriguez as a free agent for $10 million, a move that ended up getting them the World Series, I criticized the move by saying, of the Marlins, the corpse, it's like putting breast implants on a corpse.
Do you know what happened after you said that?
I don't.
They won the
You
World
won the World
Series,
yes.
Okay. Do you know that after he won the World Series, what Jeffrey wanted to do to you? He wanted to get you to do a public backtrack of the breast enhancements corpse comment.
That can't be true.
No.
It's like, I need a statement.
A retraction?
Did you do it?
He wanted a total retraction. I don't think. I mean, you and your radio show, your terrestrial old radio show, was so hated by everyone at the Marlins. Not just because of my appearances, because of what players didn't like coming on the show. They thought you were going to corner them. They were told by PR people that you were bad to players. This is back in the day, Dan, and you were, as the Herald reporter, you were so critical for no reason. We had just gotten to Florida a year before. The payroll was then moving up. We sign a future Hall of Famer And you were critical just because you thought that would sell papers, I guess.
No,
it's
it's what I thought, and then you won the World Series.
Okay.
That's what happened. Like you guys had done a number. What do you mean I didn't have any basis for it? You guys had your whole history as carpetbaggers coming in.
What did you think we were carpetbagging by signing Pudge Rodriguez?
No, before that, with the whole history of the Expos and folding.
You mean the Cliff Floyd trade?
No, I'm talking about you guys.
What did we carpetbag in Montreal, Dan? Have you ever asked anyone about the Expos situation?
You guys got out of Montreal. Why are we doing this? I'll do it with you. I've never talked to you.
We've never discussed this, but you have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay,
literally.
I'm happy to talk to you about this if you want. I think it derails.
I'm not going to waste your time.
It derails the segment.
That's it. So move on.
No,
we're good. You're right. We're carpetbaggers.
No,
we went into Montreal just like we were accused of for the sole purpose of buying the Florida Marlins. You nailed it.
That's not what I said.
Yeah, we did it. We bagged all of Montreal. Je suis désolé.
Montreal hates you. You're one of the most hated figures in sports in the history of Montreal. Yes or no?
Are you asking?
We can call Ariel Helwani.
A question that you know the answer to.
Yes or no? No, because I'm asking the audience.
But that doesn't make the bottom line true. Just because I'm hated doesn't mean that people understand.
No. Okay, so if you wish to explain how it is that you didn't jilt Montreal and end up here parlaying it in Florida into $1.2 billion with the help of baseball, using baseball money that you guys did not have to parlay whatever it is was the investment in the Expos into $1.2 billion at the end here. What am I missing?
Oh, just say yada yada, and then everything will be okay.
You should have just texted him good luck climbing down the mountain, David, and then this all would have been different.
Jeez.
Do you want to do top 5 snakes or top 5 most embarrassing things to have ever happened to you? I don't know. You were doing baseball, I assume. You were doing that. Can't be number 1 on your most embarrassing overall list.
Are you asking me the 5 times I've been most embarrassed in my life?
Well,
It's very clear that 2 of them happened in middle school, right?
I'm asking you how this top 5 should look because we've already established number 1 on most embarrassing. Do you want to just do top 5 snakes?
No, I don't. I think I want to explain to you because it's great click what a snake is in baseball because they exist in your corporation too. They're in Meadowlark. Just so you know
I've been married to one for 17 years. Like the way he sits very close to me, or used to. Now he comes in and out. Is he even coming in today?
He's in the kitchen with Amin.
Yeah.
So he's here?
Yeah, with Amin in the kitchen.
Yeah.
He's not in Lake Placid.
No, he's here.
He's not in Cleveland.
Okay. Why?
I thought he was in Cleveland today.
Well, he's not in Canton yet.
But is he going?
I don't know. I got to text.
Do you think that what Stugotz does is purposefully trying to subvert the success of the organization of Meadowlark and of your show?
I mean, often it feels like that, yes.
Okay. That's a very important distinction. If that is truly how you feel, then you've got a problem. If you feel as though he's taking advantage of the relationship he has with you and trying to get as much as he can, as quickly as he can, and stretch the limit because you are a parent who says yes to everything and then wonders why your kid does crack, then that is a different story.
Do you guys want to go get Stugotz and to talk to him about this? Because when I say that Chris Cody, I remember after it happened because I don't run a business or have never run a business before.
Did someone say snake?
When Chris Cody said I was reprimanded by people who work for me because they said to me after everyone in the company had said no to Chris Cody going to the Super Bowl, everyone in the company had told him, no, you're not going. He came to me and said he wanted to go. And I'm like, yeah, sure. You should go. That'd be fun. That'd be a fun thing to do. And then I remember telling Chris Cody this on the phone after it happened. Chris, yes, of course, great. Have a great time. You realize what's going to happen when Stugotz gets a hold of these keys, right? Like when Stugotz can come and ask for everything. And next thing you know, he's in Lake Placid, and now we're waiting to see if he's going to go be with Baselli or not. But I thought the flight was from Lake Placid to Canton. Like, why is he back here? How did he get back here? Did you guys
Let's
know
just celebrate him being here.
Yes.
Thank you, Stu. Thank you, Stu. Thank you, Stu.
Thank you.
It's called an airplane, Dano.
So what's the question for Stugotz, Samson? That he's just coming in here, and it is nice to see you. I'm happy. I'm happy and surprised that you're here. I was not expecting you today.
Well, thank you. That's very nice of you.
Do you feel as though, Stu, that you take advantage of the relationship you have with Dan and the fact that the show is called The Le Batard Show with Stugotz, that you stretch the limits of what is appropriate for you to do and not do because of the relationship you have with Dan?
Yes.
Okay. That doesn't make him a snake, right? That makes him smart.
He's honest.
It's an honest snake.
Yeah, smart.
That's debatable.
And dishonest.
Stu, I have a follow-up question. Would you do something that was to your benefit, but to the overall show's detriment?
Yes.
He did it yesterday, but he wins because the bad was funny. Like
he was on vacation. I mean,
but that makes
it anywhere without us bothering him.
Little vacay.
But he can have vacation whenever he wants. Nobody's watching his vacation.
Seems like he can't, though.
Yeah. That's why I keep taking him. I mean,
but Stu, I'd like you to really examine this question a little deeper, because what you're doing seems to be good content for your show.
Yes,
for everybody.
Right? You're playing the role.
Right.
Would you do something in that role where you were told by Dan, that's too much, this is not good content, but you wanted to do it? Would you still do it?
Yes.
And what is the reason?
Like this weekend with Baselli. I mean, I have no idea what I'm doing. I mean, but I'm going to go and I'm going to charge it to Dano. I mean, how about that?
You're not going.
Well, but you're not charging
also probably
it to
not
Dano,
going. I mean,
right? You're charging it to all of the equity holders of Metalark.
We support Stu. We
Yeah.
love Stu. We love Stu.
Yes, thank you.
It's a mutiny. Look at what's happened here.
It's a mutiny
And I love
right
you guys.
Yes, we all want to ride into the sky doing whatever we want. We don't want executives. None of us do.
I don't know how you build a billion-dollar company without having people in the front office who are willing to say no. I just don't know how you do it.
We're not building that.
We're building whatever Stugotz can get before he flames out.
We're building trips.
We're building
experiences, vacations.
That's right.
I mean,
Life. We're
A
living.
travel agency,
We're
really.
climbing.
Note to
really a
Skipper,
travel
do not-
agency, Dave.
Vacation.
We're
Oh, God.
climbing
You guys are in
Kilimanjaro.
you guys are in trouble.
Yes.
Oh, I know.
Everyone knows this. Everyone knows this. What is your movie of the week here? I wanted to get to Marlins with him. The Marlins didn't do anything, Billy.
Yes, they did. Billy,
Bah.
they got a prospect for 2 bullpen guys.
I mean, what did you think they were going to do, though, Dan? They're 10 games under 500
I'm
right
glad
now.
they kept Pablo.
Yeah, they kept Pablo. They didn't sell everyone.
And
Why do you think they kept Pablo?
Because they know that if they add a couple hitters, that can be a good 1-2 punch. Pablo can be a good number 2 starter.
So that is exactly the reason, because they could have gotten a huge prospect haul. Pitchers, bats you trade in the offseason to really maximize, and people could argue, well, Soto got maximized, but that's obviously a much different scenario. Pitchers are maximized from bullpen side at a trade deadline. You get the most you can ever get for a bullpen arm at the trade deadline. The second most popular type of person to be traded at the deadline where you can get the biggest haul is a starting pitcher who's having a good year, who's got available time before free agency. And so you saw a lot of moves like that. Pablo Lopez is extremely valuable. And if they didn't get the exact trade they wanted, they weren't going to do it. But I've got a different theory for you. I do not believe that Bruce Sherman would have approved any trade of Pablo Lopez because he would not have wanted to further the theory that they are not trying to win.
Which is good, right? I mean, it's a step in the right direction.
Listen, when we added every trade deadline, we got criticized because we traded young, good pitchers for bullpen arms who we thought would help us win. And it didn't work most of the time. So I don't know how owners and presidents ever win in the eyes of certain fans.
Before we get to your movie, Derek Jeter, have you, while you were scaling Kilimanjaro, did you...
Literally while you were scaling it, were you watching it? I can imagine that.
Yeah, there's no Wi-Fi in Kilimanjaro.
And so have you seen any of it?
And I will not.
Oh, you
It
won't?
is the most, it is, anything that he was involved in producing is just going to be a puff piece that's absolutely full of it. And so I'm not going to learn anything. And I'm not going to be entertained by it because I know the real Derek Jeter. I don't want to watch the washed version of him. I know him.
Did Jeter watch the Samson doc?
The franchise?
That was a good show.
No one watched that.
It was a good show. It was ahead of its time. That was ahead of its time.
That was ahead of its time.
Tell me,
Jessica's like, what the hell's the franchise?
Billy, go ahead and tell Jessica what the franchise. That we've never had anything like that in South Florida.
It was so revealing. They pulled the plug midway through. They're like, we can't keep doing this.
It was too honest.
Do you know why? That's not why they pulled the plug, folks. They pulled the plug because I was getting more screen time than Jeffrey, and Jeffrey had them pull the plug.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on.
Amazing.
Wait a minute. So you're saying you were getting more screen time than Jeffrey, so Jeffrey called Showtime and said this show's done?
There are several other things that happened.
Couldn't he have just called the director and said, hey, put me on screen more?
Did you and Jeffrey not have a good relationship?
Does it sound like it, Bill?
It sounds like you didn't have a great
very
one.
tough relationship. Very tough. When you work with someone for 18 years, it's not going to be. Listen, I was very fortunate to get the job in the first place with the Expos. That was purely from nepotism.
Yeah.
But in order to keep the job, I had to do it well, and it was difficult to do well. But I tried. But the other thing with the franchise is Larry Beinfest never wanted to do it, and neither did Mark Burley, and neither did
Heath Bell.
Several other players on the team were very upset that there were cameras everywhere.
Johnny Hot.
And once the season started going south, the players went to Jeffrey and said, that's it. We shouldn't be doing this anymore. It is hurting our chance of winning. And we were not drawing the way we should have at a new ballpark. And the TV itself was exceptional. Nothing was staged. Nothing was redone or rehearsed. Every scene in that documentary happened as it happened, with Ozzie Guillen, with the players, with everything. And but there was a lot of ego involved. Players were keeping track of how many minutes they were on the air in the final edited portion. Jeffrey was keeping track of how many minutes he got on the air of every final episode. He wanted editorial control over the final episodes, and Showtime was not going to give him that under David Nevins and Mike Tolan. Mike Tolan, who was involved in The Last Dance, it was the same group of people who did the franchise. And it was just a confluence of events that led to the plug being pulled. By the way, there was never another franchise because MLB, other owners said, we're never going to allow cameras into our clubhouse because it will stop us from winning.
What's your movie, David?
Can we talk about the most hated man on the internet?
Sure. It's your movie.
Has anyone seen that documentary?
No. Just you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess for all the listeners out there, and if you're watching on YouTube, it's about a guy named Hunter Moore who started a revenge porn site called Is Anyone Up? And what he would do is he would get people to send him photos of former girlfriends or people who had wronged guys and send their naked pictures in. And he would post these naked pictures and to embarrass, that's revenge porn. But it turns out what he was doing was hacking people's computers and stealing their nude photos and then posting them without the permission of the girls. And he got in trouble. And it is a documentary about one woman who's actually a famous woman, again, if Le Batard were here, from the 80s, who talked herself into parties all the time. Anyway, her daughter was found naked on this site, and her pictures had been stolen. And she spent 4 years trying to get this guy brought to justice, and finally he was. It is a fascinating documentary because it is amazing what the internet has been used for. Obviously, we know the internet's for porn, and that's how it started, and that's where the money is even to this day. But when you are hacking and stealing private pictures and posting them, and people are getting pleasure from that, that's a problem. And he became the most hated man on the internet.
David, we appreciate it. We will speak to you next week. We're short on time. We got to run. Sounds like an interesting movie, though, and a creepy one. And something you would love.
Thank you for captaining the end of that ship.
You got it.
Is Dan so upset that
Listen, I heard
bailed?
snakes. I ran in. Snake Plissken would be amongst my top 5, just so you know. Jake Plummer would also be amongst my top 5. And then, I had no idea what you were talking about. And listen, it sounded so interesting. I stopped listening because I want to watch the movie. That's it.
I was backing you up. I don't think you're a snake at all. I think that you know how to take advantage of people. I like it.
I got another vacation next week.
And happy belated 50th, by the way, Stu.
Thank you very much.
Things are going to start to hurt. They never hurt before.
They've been hurting since I was 40.
Everything that used to take 7 minutes will now take 2.
They've been taking 2 my entire life, David.
Not sure what we're talking about anymore.
We're talking about being on the wrong side of 50.
It hurts.
It definitely does. See you later, guys.
See you, man.